participants another few seconds to hop on, and we'll get started in just a minute. All right, everyone, we are going to get started. Welcome and thank you for joining us today. We're going to talk about why manual friction still exists in B2B purchasing, even for companies that have invested heavily in e-commerce, and what suppliers can do to remove that friction. Today's session is educational and practical, focused on helping you understand the fundamentals of B2B procurement integration, how you can evaluate fit for your business, and next steps if you're ready to get started. Here's how we'll spend our time together today. We'll start by looking at why traditional digital investments often fall short. Then we'll define what B2B eProcurement integration actually is, the business impact it has across teams, how to assess readiness, and finally, we'll wrap with Q&A. At any time, feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A box below. If we don't get to your question today, we'll be sure to follow up after the session. And as always, we'll send a recording of today's webinar. And with that, I will pass it over to our presenter for today's session, Donnie.
G'day there, everybody. My name is Donnie Marinos. I am a senior business development representative here at TradeCentric, originally born in Adelaide, South Australia, and moved to Minnesota in the US here 11 years ago. Coming up on my 2-year work anniversary here at TradeCentric as well. In my role, I work every single day with B2B suppliers. Most commonly, ones who are navigating e-procurement integration requirements. Usually this tends to stem from buyer demands, but also ones who are facing internal operational challenges themselves, and they're looking to take a more proactive approach to integration. So the information that I'm going to share with you today is based on common questions and discussions that our team has with suppliers every single day. So let's jump in. Now, when we're thinking about traditional B2B e-commerce, everything used to be centered around the storefront, right? But when we're thinking of it from a buyer's perspective, that's not really where they're operating. Instead, they live in procurement systems. And they're doing that because it's where they can have compliant workflows that provide better control over their overall spend. So the disconnect, as you can see being represented by the broken chain link in the picture there, that has a direct impact on things like fulfillment speed, accuracy, and overall customer experience. Now, in my time at TradeCentric, I've had the chance to attend a few different events, and usually conversations that are centered around these things typically get seen as more like a minor inconvenience. But when we're really breaking it down and we're able to show more of it, they're coming to find that things like this directly affects revenue, cash flow, operational efficiency, and just overall business relationships as well. So if I'm going to put this simply, if your catalogs and your e-commerce storefronts aren't integrated, then chances are you're probably facing lost revenue opportunities. So the way I like to think of it, if I'm going to break it down even further, is if there are order errors, there are fulfillment delays. If there are invoice mismatches, there are payment delays. If there's a customer working through a manual process to make purchases, they're facing friction and chances are they're feeling frustrated. And it makes sense, right? We live in a world now where we can make personal purchases in a matter of seconds. I know I'm definitely guilty of seeing something I like and clicking before I really think about it. And sure enough, there's something already on the way. But when it comes to B2B purchasing, it doesn't work like that. It can take hours to do the simplest order. And I should say here, adding people doesn't magically fix this problem, and it certainly doesn't scale either. So let's start by talking about some of the ways organizations are trying to solve for these challenges, starting with what we call going digital. Now, not all digital is created equal. There are many suppliers out there who assume that having either an e-commerce storefront, a portal, or EDI means that they're offering a fully digital experience. But if teams are still rekeying purchase orders or they're correcting pricing or they're fixing invoices manually, the experience is not truly digital. So let's break these down starting from the left-hand side there with storefronts and portals. Now, sure, they are technically digital. They've got online catalogs where the supplier can showcase products and their content and their pricing in that branded environment, and they can also offer login-based purchasing. But they're still requiring manual purchase order handling. They've got buyer dependent workflows and they offer limited automation. And also, the users are required to manage multiple logins as well. Shifting to EDI, this moves data with structured documents and system to system exchange, but it lacks a dynamic buying experience. It lacks real time pricing and availability, and it also lacks visibility and analytics as well. When we're thinking about EDI versus CXML, another thing to consider is that the technology can also become quickly dated because it's harder for it to stay up to date on ever changing standards. So the solve that we came up for this is eProcurement integration. This supports automated orders and invoices alongside real-time system-driven buying that actually closes the gap to offering that truly integrated digital purchasing experience. Now, I realize that was a lot of info in a single sentence there, so I want to slow this down just a bit more and focus on what eProcurement integration truly is and also how it works. So, in its simplest terms, B2B e-procurement integration connects a buyer's e-procurement platform to a supplier's e-commerce system. So, if we're looking at the left of the image there, the buyer e-procurement platforms, things like Coupa, Jagger, and Oracle. To the right-hand side, we're looking at BigCommerce, Adobe Commerce Cloud, Salesforce, and as you can see, more than 75 more there. This connection is what enables orders, invoices, and updates to flow automatically in the formats that each system requires. And the benefit for this is that it's removing the manual touch points and it's also accelerating the transaction lifecycle as well. So this type of fully integrated process automates every step from product discovery to invoice submission. Behind the scenes, it's also handling data transformation, validation, and delivery. So then teams don't manually have to do any of that stuff. Buyers connect with suppliers using their preferred systems, while suppliers receive standardized, validated data that they can process automatically from there. Now, there are six core integration solutions that you should know about. So, I'm going to explain what the process is and also talk about why it matters on both sides for each of these. So, I'm going to start with punch out. Now, this removes friction from the very start of the purchasing process. So, buyers from within their own e-procurement system are automatically authenticated to shop through a connected supplier catalog. They're then able to pull cart data back directly from that storefront into their e-procurement system to then route for internal review and approval. And this here is what makes the B2B purchasing process faster, easier, and just much more efficient, right? Buyers get that familiar, compliant shopping experience without having to log into separate systems. But then the suppliers gain higher quality orders that aligns with negotiated pricing and contracts. So the result of all of this is faster acquisitions, fewer errors, stronger buyer adoption, and increased spend flowing through a preferred channel, and all of that without any added manual effort. Next up there is purchase order automation. This is where the buyer is able to send a purchase order directly into the supplier's system in the correct format to accelerate that fulfillment process. This here reduces delays, errors, and operational overhead. So the orders are able to arrive faster, they're cleaner, and they're ready for fulfillment, which overall shortens the order cycle times and also improves accuracy too. So for the suppliers, this means there's less time fixing mistakes and there's more time strategically growing accounts. But then on the buyer side, it's ensuring that orders are being processed exactly as they've been approved. And this improves trust and reliability, which ends up making up a better business relationship for everybody. Next up there is invoice automation. The supplier automatically delivers a clean, validated invoice directly to the buyer's e-procurement system in the correct format once again. So invoice automation minimizes the exceptions that slow down payment. By validating invoices upfront and aligning them to the purchase orders and receipts, the suppliers reduce rework and disputes while also accelerating the time to payment. The buyers benefit from this because they're getting improved compliance, lower accounts payable costs, and better visibility into spend as well. So everybody wins here with fewer manual touches, faster processing, and stronger buyer to supplier relationships. Now, I know I'm just through the first three there. There's three more to go, but I do want to take a little pause in the middle because most suppliers, when they're starting this process, will start with those first three: punch out, purchase order automation, and invoice automation, because those are the solutions that cover the primary milestones, if you will, in the B2B transaction process when we're thinking about shopping, ordering, and payment. So together, we refer to these as the essentials. These remove the most manual effort and deliver the most efficient and valuable impact as well. But continue on, there's three more, like we said, and these are the types of solutions to consider depending on what's needed on either side of this business relationship here. So we'll start with both purchase order acknowledgement and ASNs, advanced shipping notices. So these two solutions offer additional visibility and communication throughout the B2B transaction process. And I should say some buyers do require one, if not both of these as well. So putting it simply, they're automated documents that will improve visibility and transaction confidence. The purchase order acknowledgement document will confirm with the buyer that their purchase order has been received. Meanwhile, the ASN informs the buyer of key shipping information, such as shipment date and expected delivery date as well. Finishing up in the bottom right there is eQuote. This supports integrated electronic quoting within buyer systems. So typically, we'll see suppliers look to integrate this when they make use either of bulk purchases or if they have products that require various forms of customization that makes it too difficult to list within a SKU. So one example that I can think of here is this shirt, trade-centric shirt that I'm wearing right here. Buying a shirt in general, nice and easy, but if there's customizations that need to be done, maybe you want to put logos in different spots and things like that, that's the type of customization where eQuote is going to be the better fit there. So now that we know what our options are, let's see what happens when you implement these solutions and what impact it can have on the business from there. Now, as suppliers start integrating with customer e-procurement systems, the impact is going just beyond automating transactions. It completely evolves how the business operates. So, as always, starting from the left, we'll kick it off with revenue growth. Now, when buyers can place orders directly from within their own e-procurement systems, purchasing becomes easier and it also becomes more consistent. And that is what often leads to larger order volumes and more repeat business, simply because you've improved your visibility, but also you've removed the friction from the buying process as well. So that goes on to operational efficiency. Integration automates steps that are often handled manually today. Things like we've talked about, entering POs and processing invoices. So by reducing any of that manual work, the suppliers see fewer errors, and then there's less rework, which leads to faster order fulfillment. And that, of course, goes to a better buying experience. The enterprise buyers usually are required to follow specific internal workflows for compliance and approvals. So when a supplier can actively support those workflows, those enterprise buyers don't have to work around their systems. And that makes the supplier easier to do business with, leading to a stronger long-term relationship. And that then gets into reduced costs. Automation means fewer exceptions, fewer invoice discrepancies, and fewer inquiries to customer service and finance teams. Now, over time, that will lower administrative costs and it will also improve cash flow through faster, more predictable payment cycles. So, in general, e-procurement integration can sometimes be known as a technical project, but really the true value shows up in multiple business outcomes: revenue growth, ordering efficiency, stronger buyer relationships, and lower operational costs as well. Now, I want to take a quick minute here to highlight some of those points by reviewing comments from companies who are actually running B2B e-procurement integration programs. So we'll start on the left there with the Bob Barker Company. Of the customers they brought on since implementing TradeCentric, they've seen a 38% e-commerce revenue growth in the first year after launch, while the rest of the company only had a 3% increase. Looking across the Volvo Financial Services, they integrated a customer last year who was doing punch out, hosted catalogs, and invoice automation. Since then, sales have increased year on year. These companies here have seen revenue growth, a decrease in implementation time, and also increased sales when additional automation was added to the process. And for me, the key thing here is that these companies aren't just taking orders anymore. It's not that reactive approach to B2B e-commerce. They've completely shifted to a proactive approach. And this is resulting in them building success and growing their business in a short period of time. Now, I should acknowledge that two companies obviously doesn't provide context for everything. So I want to dive a little deeper into this here. 2 years ago, Hobson and Company, which is an independent research firm, interviewed and analyzed a subset of our customers from various industries. And what they found is that companies who invested in B2B e-procurement integration realized an average ROI of 5 to 7 times over a 3 year period. And this is made up of a few different things here. There was 20% more e-commerce revenue from existing buyers and 20% more revenue from new customers. On top of this, there was a 60% reduction in time spent on integration setup and management, which means if you're doing this, your customers can buy faster and your team can focus on other tasks. Then on top of that, teams working with Trade-Centric also spent 80% less time managing purchase orders. So this kept their work stream flowing and customers received their orders faster and ended up staying happier because of it. So I should say, if these numbers do seem surprising to you or even unrealistic based on your own experience, fair enough. But I will say achieving even half of these improvements is real material change in ROI and why I think it's absolutely worth considering depending. So we've covered a lot already here in 15 minutes. What B2B e-procurement integration is, its core solutions, and the business impact it provides. So I want to finish up all of this by talking about how to implement these types of solutions. Now, there are two paths to achieving e-procurement integration. You can build and manage integrations in-house, which we commonly refer to as DIY, or you can partner with a purpose-built integration platform like Trade-Centric. So we'll start on the left again with DIY. Now, some suppliers do choose to build integrations themselves using internal technical resources. And while these do provide full control over every integration, they also come with long implementation timelines and are resource intensive, especially when technical teams are having to balance competing projects and other priorities for the business as well. They're also difficult to scale and provide a higher risk because every buyer requires a custom build and ongoing maintenance after that. So when we're thinking about rebuilds for system updates or buyer replatforms and things like that, that just provides a lot more work. So the bottom line of all of that is DIY can work for a small number of buyers with strong IT support, but it becomes costly, risky, and honestly unsustainable when thinking about it at scale. So comparing this across to purpose-built integration platforms like Trade-Centric, they're designed specifically for that supplier to buyer e-procurement integration. These come with a faster buying onboarding process because they have standardized integrations and native support for punch-out. There's an efficient process to scale across hundreds of buyers, which means we can work through multiple integrations simultaneously. We're not limited to working on one system at a time. There's also built-in enterprise security and compliance there as well. And all of this leads to supplier internal teams being freed up to focus on growth rather than just integration maintenance. Now, I've been challenged here to try to distill this down to one sentence. So, DIY versus purpose-built integration. Purpose-built platforms enable scalable, efficient e-procurement integration programs that drive true value faster, and they address the buyer-facing integration layer that other paths like DIY simply don't. So, the natural question I think at the end of all of this, okay, great. How do I evaluate if B2B e-procurement integration is the right fit for my business? There are a few things that I would take into consideration here. Firstly, the type of business in question. From our experience, B2B e-procurement integration typically delivers the most value for mid-market and enterprise suppliers. But really more specifically, ones who are managing high order volumes and increasingly complex customer requirements as well. Another thing I would consider is the workflows that are currently in place. So, thinking about this, if every new buyer or procurement system adds manual work, whether that's rekeying orders, handling exceptions, or resolving invoice issues, integration becomes a growth enabler rather than just a technical project. But that said, integration is not just a plug and play thing. From a system standpoint, you need an e-commerce platform, an ERP that can support automated order and invoice flows, and a well-structured product catalog as well. Then, just as important as all the rest there is organizational readiness. Successful integrations require cross-functional alignment, clarity on which buyers to prioritize, and executive sponsorship to drive adoption and long-term scale. So, when the business case and the prerequisites are all in place, then B2B e-procurement integration can help suppliers grow without increasing operational complexity. And I've managed to do that in less than 20 minutes. Nice.
All right, awesome. Thanks so much for that. That was super informative and very clear. So thank you for laying all that out for us.
Sure.
We do have some questions from the audience, so I'll just go down the list here. Let's see.
Okay.
How is e-procurement integration different from a hosted catalog?
That's that's a good question. And I say that because I know I struggled to really understand that when I first started here at Trade Centric. So let's see, e-procurement integration, what we've been focusing on today. So that directly connects an e-commerce system with the buyer's e-procurement system. And that enables that real-time product access, automated order creation, and error-free invoicing. A hosted catalog is a static list of products that needs to be maintained, and it's typically not easy to browse either. So when thinking about it, the catalog is dynamic. It's accurate inventory levels and assortment, customer-specific negotiator pricing, and less errors, and also less delays because the buyer doesn't have to manually rekey info into their procurement system. I kind of went off on a little tangent there, but I hope that answers that question.
Awesome. All right, we've got another question from the audience. Let's see. Is there a minimum number of customers needed to justify integration?
Yeah, actually, a lot of the conversations that I'll have with people that are just kind of new to this and trying to learn about it typically stems from them having one customer that'll say, "Hey, we want Punch Out. Can you help us out?" Generally, our clients will see the strongest ROI when they've got at least two buyers that are actually ready for integration as well. So, starting with multiple buyers will allow you to spread the initial integration effort across more revenue opportunities to help accelerate adoption and also demonstrate value more quickly. It's also going to help ensure that the integration is delivering more meaningful business impacts from day one instead of just being that one-off connection, and even if that's ready to kickstart.
Awesome. All right, we've got another question. Can we start with one solution like Punch Out and expand later?
Yeah, absolutely, you can. Actually, a lot of companies do start just with Punch Out and then they'll add additional capabilities over time. So, I did talk about the essentials earlier when it was that Punch Out, purchase order automation, and invoice automation. I would say most probably start with that, but it also kind of depends on the relationship that the supplier has with the buyer, what's needed, what's already in place, and things. The approach is modular, so I guess you can expand as needs evolve without needing to redo anything from the get-go.
Awesome. All right, we've got another question. What happens when buyers change systems or upgrade platforms?
I know a lot of work can come in from that. I've seen 6-month projects, 12-month projects, whether it's replatforming or getting a new one up for the first time, things like that. And in any of those cases, Trade-Centric can help manage those transitions or setups with minimal disruption. I guess transitions would be the disruption side, but our integrations are designed to be adaptable. So when a buyer upgrades or they're moving to a new procurement platform, for example, you don't have to completely start from scratch. We're going to work closely with both sides so then we can handle the changes efficiently and keep the transactions running smoothly.
Okay, we've got time for one more question. Who needs to be involved in integration?
That's such a good question because I say that because I have conversations every day, like I'd said, with suppliers, but it's not just the head of e-commerce. I'm speaking with sales, I'm speaking with marketing, I'm speaking with IT. Our most successful customers, I would say, have engagement from several departments across the organization. Like in talking about it just there, if I'm thinking of IT, maybe they're more focused on systems access and data flow, e-commerce, and sometimes even operations teams, they're more focused on the product and the pricing. Even the customer facing teams, if we're thinking of sales and customer success, they're really focused on enablement and things like that. So, yeah, I guess I would say, for lack of a better answer, everyone. Like I said, the most successful customers are going to have engagement from as many departments as possible because it does impact everybody. I will also add that having buy-in from leadership as well is going to be really important here too.
Awesome. All right, that is all the time we have for questions today. If today's session sparked questions or you'd like to continue the conversation, you can feel free to scan the QR code here on the screen to schedule time with Donnie. We can chat more. I've also dropped his LinkedIn in the chat if you would like to connect with him. He posts a lot of really great information about the industry, updates, information, and all those types of things. So feel free to connect with him. And with that, I will let everybody go. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks for joining us all.